You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 235, and my name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram. Co-hosting with me is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John's still tied up with work, but we promise he'll be back one day, hopefully soon. But off the top today, I want to quickly talk about the Topps Chrome basketball release. But before we do, Hyung, since it's just you and I today on the pod, and it's the first one back together since we went and came back from Fanatics Fest New York City, do you have any quick thoughts on the trip? You know, the event, what you thought of it in general?
I know we talked about this a bit, but I think based on kind of like stepping back now and seeing how everything is, I thought the show was great. There's a lot of things to do, not from a card collecting standpoint. I think it's more of a sports fan. I just enjoyed being there. Like, there was a lot more to do than just cards, sports cards. And I think that's one thing I didn't expect that I would enjoy, because I was kind of in the mindset of, I want to see all these cards, I want to walk around. But I think what I liked about it was there's so much to do there other than sports cards. And then, right. But with that said, just based on listening to dealers there, I do think there needs to be room for improvement on the sports card side. I think there were probably a lot of not happy dealers based on kind of what the conversations that I had, which makes sense. And that's part of, I think on a previous episode, I think having someone that specializes in just the sports card from Fanatics and really, you know, caring for them, making sure, you know, everything is up to par from a project management standpoint. I think they kind of got left in the corner, and it was kind of like just the regular show with, you know, no attention to the sports card section. I think if they spend more time and resources managing it, I think they could make a better experience. So I think that's one of the things that as I kind of step back and see what needs improvement, I would say. And I think a lot of, just reading the comments, a lot of people said, what a waste of money or a waste of time. It sucked. It was a fail. I don't feel that whatsoever. Like, it's insane to hear those comments, which is fine. It's like everybody has their own experience. But from what I've experienced, I had a blast. I'm still tired from walking. But I do like the New York vibe at the end of the day. Like the food was great. Like, yeah, I'm a big, I like good food. I'm not a foodie, but I just like good food. I just can't stand the mediocre chicken fingers, 3 days in a row. Just some options. But overall, it was I'm so glad that I went. It was such a great experience. And more importantly, I'm glad I documented it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No,
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I agree. And going back to the steps, we looked at our step counts, like over 20,000 each day that we're in New York City. So yeah, it was a lot of walking, a lot of steps. But yeah, no, I recorded a couple of ideas to improve the event in last week's podcast when I recorded the intro solo. But just kind of to your point and what you just mentioned right now, I think there was an expectation that the dealers would get a lot more than they did, or at least some of the dealers have mentioned that to both of us, right? And we know that it's not a secret. They paid about $3,000 to $3,500 for their booths, which is higher than average, right? Like, I don't believe the National is even that much.
No, not even close.
And I can almost picture how they pitched it, like Fanatics Fest pitched it. He's like, listen, we're going to draw tens of thousands of people, especially with the celebrities, with the athletes, and you're going to get foot traffic to your booth.
Right.
And I don't think it worked that way. You know what I mean? It's like people just kind of glanced at it maybe,
right.
or just happened to stumble upon their booth, but it wasn't an intentional effort. And maybe that's what they were.
One of the common things that they were saying is they were doing well with like lower end cards. I think typical of what like a new person would come into the hobby, and they wouldn't drop like over $1,000 on a card, but they might drop like $100, $200, $50 to start their collection. So I think there is opportunity there in terms of the expectations, because usually during card shows like that, no one's buying your base cards or your sub $100 cards. But I think there are more opportunities to sell to that clientele, because there was a lot of newcomers. So, I mean, you could see it as is. Like, you know, I would love to sell my sub $100 cards off of eBay in person, where, you know, I could just get rid of a good chunk off that too. True. So I think there might be opportunity in the future for that. Just knowing the demographics is not necessarily hardcore collectors that are looking to make $1,000 deals. I mean, they're going to be there, but I think majority of the Fanatics clientele was newcomers to the hobby, and they wouldn't mind dropping, you know, max couple $100 on a slab.
Yeah, that makes total sense for sure. You know, so maybe couple suggestions, like you said, you know, bring your lower end cards, or, you know, those value boxes, value bins, right? Another suggestion, I heard Jake Paul bought a bunch of cards, right? So Michael Rubin, bring your celebrity guests and like encourage them to buy some cards, you know? And then I'm sure, you know, 10, 15,000 isn't anything to them, right? So
exactly,
you never know.
That's a good point.
Brady, we saw Brady walking around the booths, you know, and he could drop a few thousand here and there, I'm sure. Just encourage your buddies, Michael, to spend some money on sports cards.
And another point to that is, like, I would, like, some people who got press time with the big celebrities, I think the marketing opportunity alone, I think that's the way you got to look at it, is kind of like, it's not necessarily ROI per every transaction you do. Like, I think going in it,
financial.
Yeah, I think going in it, you have to do it for the experience, and maybe cards can pay off a big portion of that, right? Maybe not in profit, but it gives you the opportunity to be there, create more content. And like I said, from a creator standpoint, from a content creator standpoint, it's a wonderland. You have unlimited amounts of opportunity to create content. I think a lot of people notice that, a lot of influencers. So I think there's value on that side. Not saying that the average collector is any influencer, but I mean, if you're a bigger brand that didn't go, I think there might be potential for that, just to be part of it and be seen as well.
Now that we're just spitballing, like, if I was a booth, if I had a booth, right, and I was a vendor there, it forces me, or I would hope that it would force me to be more creative with how I present my cards.
For sure.
Right? So if I'm going to set up a Fanatics Fest, I have an expectation that, there's a possibility that a superstar athlete could be walking down towards where I'm set up, right? So maybe I do a promo saying, hey, I have a Tom Brady Bowman Chrome card. If Brady comes and signs it, we'll do a giveaway or something, you know what I mean? And then, you know, this just attract attention. And to your point about marketing, that's marketing gold for any 100%. Booth, to have Tom Brady come by and take part in whatever you're offering, you know, and I don't know. So I'm saying that maybe vendors can also do their part in becoming more creative instead of just setting up and having cards. I know it's an extra thing for them to do, but you know, there's always things you can do to improve your own experience too, instead of just waiting and hoping that Fanatics Fest organizers do everything for you.
Good point.
All I'm saying. All right. I want to kind of quickly touch on that. And, you know, if Fanatics Fest, if this becomes an annual thing, the flagship event happens in New York City, I might just have to make it a annual trip. It was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun for sure. All right, let's talk Topps Chrome basketball. So the set's back since 2008 or 2009. And yes, we've talked about it before on this pod. Yes, it's unlicensed. And I'm on record saying that I'm not a big fan of the look without the logos, other than the Wemby rookie card. But you know what I did? I bought a hobby box from the Topps website. And I bought into the hype, man. That's what happened.
That's a perfect example of what we're talking about. It's like someone who says they're a hard pass on it, still becomes a customer and purchases it.
Yeah, that was me. That was totally me. And, I saw breakers ripping boxes, and I'm like, whoa, another Wemby? They just like, this is crazy, the hype that's going on. And so I went on to the Topps website, and actually what they did for this release was interesting. I don't know if they did this before, but they used a third-party software called EQL, which allows you to sign up and enter essentially a lottery for the chance at buying a hobby box for $300 in this case.
Right.
And I ended up winning, and so I bought a box. I had to, right? And the question for me now, of course, is do I rip or do I flip? And I'm like, I'm gonna just do an easy flip, right? But I'm kind of leaning towards ripping.
I think you got to rip.
Great content.
I think you got to rip,
right?
Yeah. I mean, we think if you do it, we flipped the Fanatics Fest box, made a few $100. You're in on that box at $0.
Pretty much. Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna rip. All right.
I love it.
All our podcast listeners have, just heard or hear that I'm gonna rip, and I'll record it and it'll go up on our YouTube page. Would you rip? I want to ask you what you would do.
I would 100% rip if I had it in your shoe. Like I said, you can't go wrong with either. It depends on what you're in it for. Like at the end of the day, if you want to flip and make the few $100, there's nothing wrong with that either. Like that's a great move. But if you are doing it for the experience and you want to chase Wemby, then that's a great experience too, right? It all depends on, I think, your intention. I think part of the reason why we have so many, disagreements within the hobby is everybody has different intentions and none of it's right or wrong. So it's okay to do whatever you feel is necessary. And I think that's part of the motto of collect what you love. It's like love what you're doing at the end of the day in the hobby and don't have to justify to anyone, right? So with that being said, I would take the gamble and rip because, it is an experience. Like you said, it's been 13, 14 years since the last release. So, and I'm not saying that like other people care about that fact either. Like I don't think a lot of people care that it's been 14 years since Topps Chrome because people haven't even been in the hobby, so they don't even know the difference.
Right.
So like, I think it weighs more from a hobbyist standpoint. Like, oh, Topps Chrome is back. This is going to be a huge release. But I don't think this year's Topps Chrome release is huge because there's been a 14-year hiatus. I think it's the hype that's surrounded with it. Again, it's the marketing, the supply demand, the Wemby chase, how Fanatics positioned the licensing deal with the autos with Wemby. I think they played the game right to create this massive surplus of demand. And at the end of the day, this hobby is all supply demand. And selling is all supply demand. That's what everybody doesn't understand. And you could even extrapolate that to individual cards. Like, that's what it follows. Like, why is this worth $10,000? It's worth $10,000 because someone's willing to pay for it and there's not enough supply to justify a lower value. So that's why. It's not, oh, this is not worth that much. It's like, well, that's not how the market works. The market is surely on supply demand. And I think people don't take that into consideration as a basic fundamental of our whole hobby.
Totally true. And, it doesn't hurt that there's a $1 million bounty on the Wemby Superfractor
supply
auto.
Demand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's manufactured or not, which in this case, that's manufactured. But those are what keeps it going, right?
So a tip for people that are going to flip their hobby boxes if they got it at a retail price on the Topps website, that's going to come down once someone pulls the Superfractor auto. Right. So just remember that as well. Right now, you're paying probably peak prices because of that chase. Everyone wants that $1 million card, right? So I also want to ask you about Topps Chrome for this year. I'm not talking about the future years of Topps Chrome basketball, what they're going to do with it. But for this year, do you think it's really just about the Wemby chase.
100%. It's all about the Wemby
Right.
chase. And for me, it's, one, they have a good marriage in Wemby autos because, you have your Bowman Chrome U, which doesn't have his Spurs uni. Well, technically the Topps Chrome doesn't have his Spurs uni either.
Right.
It looks like some photo bucket picture, of just a standard uni, and I thought they did a good job of making it look as good as they can, given their stipulation with licensed NBA teams. So yeah, it's all about the Wemby chase, and there's multiple autos in it as well. So it's not the big superfractor image that everybody's after. Yep. It's like there's cool looking inserts that look great. I think just even like the Future Stars auto, I think is a great looking card that's going to age really well. Even his base insert cards, I think if they're short printed, they're going to do really well in the long term. So I think having those fundamentals to keep longevity in the product, given that Wemby still performs the way Wemby is, slated to perform, I think that goes a long way, and that's going to keep the hype. But other than that, there's no Luka, there's no, I forgot who the other player was. It's like it's not a great set otherwise, and this is what I've expected. It's Wemby becomes the center stage, the hype behind that, the bounties that are out there, the marketing behind it all come into play of a huge supply-demand product at this point.
Yep. And I said this earlier, this is why Topps released a set like this, even though it's unlicensed, because they knew Wemby would be this kind of draw.
Right.
And we're seeing it now. We're seeing it with the hype, right? Just looking further ahead before we go on to the next segment, do you think Topps Chrome Basketball will be the basketball card set for modern basketball collectors? Like, in other words, it's not going to be Prizm anymore. We know that Prizm right now is, everyone likes collecting Prizm rookies, but moving forward, do you think Topps Chrome Basketball will be the card that people will talk about for basketball card collectors?
Absolutely. They have a rich history with the LeBron and Curry in that era. So, they have a rich history of, producing valuable cards at the end of the day. LeBron and Curry all do really well with Topps Chrome products. So it's not like it's a brand new product out there. And moreover, whoever has the NBA licensing wins at the end of the day. So that's going to be the most sought after once they officially get the licensing. So I think it's just a matter of time before the switch is over. 2012 to 2023 was the Prizm era. So I think there's going to be a demand for those cards too, right? There's a lot of good players within that era, a lot of amazing Prizm cards during that era. So I think there's still going to be a demand for Prizm in that era. And like with anything, you look at Prizm baseball, it doesn't really do well, but that's what they're going to be going for. And there's going to be a particular player like Paul Skeens and Shohei Ohtani in baseball side that still sell well on unlicensed stuff, right? Because there is a secondary market to it. So I think there's always going to be somewhat of a demand for Prizm product still, but I think Topps Chrome is going to eat it up once they have their full licensing and full capabilities back. Just think of this. It's like, if you said you're up against you don't have the NBA licensing, but you're going to have to make good profit and a successful launch product on Topps Chrome without the licensing, this is the best case scenario. I don't think anybody else could pull this off the way Fanatics did at the end of the day. It's like, and people are right. I'm not saying, oh my God, these Topps Chrome basketball is such an amazing card. It's not. It's unlicensed. So I'm in the same boat from a hobbyist standpoint. That doesn't change what's going to happen though. Still going to be a massive demand. And I mentioned in our chat group, I'm like, still going to sell out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
It doesn't matter. It's still going to sell out.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. And for me, the weird part is going to be like 5-10 years down the road, and people that get into basketball cards then, and just imagine that Luka becomes even greater than he is now, and you're going to be like, I'm going to start collecting Luka cards, but it's going to be only in the Prizm, like the Prizm rookie cards are going to be the one you're going to want for Luka or Jason Tatum, that generation of players, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it reminds me of what Brian Dennison mentioned, Cajun Cardboard, when he was on our podcast. When he started collecting basketball cards again, and he was looking for Giannis, he was looking for Topps Chrome product, but all of Giannis's cards are in Prizm. And now it's going to be kind of the reverse for New York collectors, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So
I think Wemby's cards are going to age well, given that he continues to do what he's capable of doing, because I think Wemby's case is different. I think Fanatics played their cards right, because like I said, a lot of people take stake in Wemby autos, and there's not a lot of Wemby autos outside of kind of like what's been produced. And with Panini's, the Optic Donruss, the no auto card, you know what I mean? Right. Stuff like that, where it's like, that was supposed to be the big cards that, people are after, but what's next? It's either Bowman U or Topps Chrome at the end of the day. So it's like, pick whatever you want. And then the second, third year Wemby autos, they're going to have demand there with full licensing. There will be another surge of demand there because it's the official Spurs, but people are going to want his rookie year auto at the end of the year, right? Or at the end of the day. So
yeah, no, true. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out, but yeah, we'll see soon enough. All right, that was an extended off the top segment. So let's move on to hobby headlines. Now, people who follow me on my Instagram or Facebook page at 5cardguys, they know I frequently put up reels that show how much a specific card has sold for over the years. And unsurprisingly, most have dropped over the last 3 years since the hobby hype during COVID. But lately, I've been seeing the more recent sales of big, rare, high-end cards and a little higher than the previous sale, like a few months or even a year ago. So for example, the LeBron James 2003 SP Auto rookie card, a PSA 10, sold at its peak in September 2021 for $120,000. It went all the way back down to $24,000 in June of this year. But the last sale this month in August 2024 was $34,000. So $10,000 more than 2 months ago. Another card, for example, the 2017 National Treasures RPA Gold Hollow of Patrick Mahomes, BGS 9.5. At its peak, it sold for $1.08 million in September 2021.
Crazy.
Went back down to $232,000 in December of 2023. And the recent sale this month, again, August 2024, it's gone up to $317,000. So those are just two examples, and the trend of things bottoming out, especially for these higher end cards. So I was curious and I looked up some CardLadder indexes, and instead of seeing all red as we did before, when you filter the data to show year to date, now that we're 2/3 into the year, almost half of them are back in the green. Okay. So I was wondering, maybe we can discuss what we think is happening right now in the sports card market and what do we expect to happen in the near future. But before you weigh in, Hyung, just some points of data to consider. Year to date, basketball cards up 2.4%. Baseball up 1.22%. Football up 8.6%. And tennis, this is kind of surprising, up 31.23%. That might have to do actually something with the Topps Chrome tennis release a few weeks ago. The only sport of the four major ones that's down right now is hockey, minus 12.07%. So all that said, thoughts, Hyung? What do you think is going on in the sports car market? Are we past the bottom?
So back in, I think, 2021, 2022, I forgot what episode it was, but we predicted a huge crash in the market, which follows the trends of how our spending is in general from a macroeconomic standpoint. But you got to remember, a lot of these cards were way overpriced, so true value wasn't there. So at the time, and this is with all stocks, crypto, even real estate, you'll see it on a smaller scale, not as volatile, but a lot of these cards were overpriced during COVID. So it's just a matter of a market correction, right? And that's with with any marketplace that you go into. You see it real estate all the time. In Toronto here, real estate, you're seeing it right now. Like some of these people are selling 30-40% from last year, right? There's guys that, bought in at 1.5 that are selling at, $900K, $1 million and taking a $500,000 loss. It's insane. It was never worth that much. And it was all outside influence that, made it that price for someone to pull the trigger at that point. But over time, there's always correction. And the way I could prove this is if you go back all the way to the 1960s and you track sports cards from the 1960s, I did a little research. From the 60s to 80s, there was on average a 5 to 10% annual growth on sports cards. Okay. During the 90s, when it was the mass production, there was only a 2 to 4%, with a lot of cards losing value. So at that point, a lot of cards weren't actually worth that much, but only the cards that had good fundamentals lasted and increased over time. Just like any other marketplace, like real estate, watch marketplace, you could do crypto, you could do stocks. It's all going up in, if you look at it from a decade perspective, pricing per decade. Mm-hmm. And if you zoom out of the day trading lens, right? And it's the same thing during the 2000s to 2010s, 10 to 15% annual growth. And then you go to the 2020s, there were like 50% growth.
Right.
So you look at that from a decade to decade standpoint. Am I bullish on cards looking at that data? Absolutely. Should it be at a 50% growth rate in the last 4 years? Absolutely not. So for me, I look at it at that standpoint. I see, there's a market correction to be had, but some cards obviously don't fall into that category because, like I said, some cards were undervalued at the time. So people who make those moves, and purchase them, they're making solid investments from a undervalued standpoint, and they're looking at it from a more annual to decade perspective rather than day-to-day trading. And I think that's where we see it so much, is we see at today's prices and what we could make the flip or sale currently, as opposed to long-term investments and strategies of what we think is a great investment from an investment standpoint. But if you look at the data, it's an annual growth constantly. And whether you want to include inflation as a part of that, those are all factors that, come into this at the end of the day. But I think it's very normal to see this kind of drop and then kind of taper. And I will say it is a good sign to see green right now, because that meant there was a point in time where it did hit the floor. And I personally don't think it's the floor yet. I think we still have another year of kind of downfall, to be honest, before, the whole market could say that it's in a bullish state, right? So I think there needs to be more correction. There's a lot of inflated values even currently today. We see it all the time. The Cactus Jack boxes, they're like 3,000 now or whatever they are, right? And but this is what our hobby is. There's if you invested in crypto, it's the same thing. It's like huge IPO of ridiculous prices followed by a crash, and then followed by a correction and steady growth, right? So I think we're in the same boat as sports cards. There are great opportunities, but there are a lot of bag holders at the end of the day. And it's just a matter of making, doing your own research to make smarter decisions based on, if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint. If you're looking at it from a collecting standpoint, it's totally different. But from an investment standpoint, and depending on your hold cycles, it's all going to be different. And people are going to have different opinions with that. And nobody's right or wrong. I'm sure you're right in your perspective, but I look at sports card investing at a really long-term cycle, as opposed to kind of like this short day trading thing that our hobby loves to do.
Right, for sure. It is encouraging for me, though, to see like these general trends, right? That the bottoming out of some of these higher end valued sports cards it's flatlining at a certain point. And that kind of, doesn't mean it won't go down any further, but some of these cards, it's been that kind of trend for almost a year now. So that's a good sign. They're like, okay, maybe the we talked about this off the top. Tom Brady Bowman Chrome rookie card is at the value it is now because it hasn't really changed, right. Despite its high pop count. Like, like that's the thing too. With some of these cards have a higher pop count than I would want it to have if I want to collect, but it also goes to show you that there's a steady demand for those cards. That's why it's at that value, right? Despite the supply. And what I also want to ask you, like, how much of an impact do you think, not to always talk about Fanatics, but them coming into the marketplace and in the last 2-3 years of this collectibles hobby space, how much do you think that's a factor in where we are now? So
let's go back to what I said about the macroeconomics of things. Right now, we're going down. I'm telling you right now. It's you follow the same 2008 trend. We're in a similar bubble where before things get better, things are gonna go down still, but it's different in emerging markets. This is the difference. Because a lot of the old stuff that are crashing, they will crash. But when you're talking about an emerging market, during that time, emerging markets usually do very well. So it's like people look for alternative investments. And like I said, if you bring in the Fanatics equation of what they're able to do in terms of quote unquote 10xing the hobby, right? Growing the hobby with more people, just more participants, maybe not hobbyists or collectors, but more participants. Those emerging markets are going to hold strong through these tough times in terms of an economic downfall or a downturn, right? So for me, it's like, it's not saying it's recession proof, but based on what Fanatics is doing, they're doing so well from a marketing standpoint that I think they're going to do well during this downturn of economic instability, right? Because I think we're going through, and you're going to see it. It goes all hand in hand with interest rates. We're seeing it here in Toronto. Even the real estate market's going to be dictated off that. Even our spending, and if you look at the VIX index, I don't know if people are familiar with the VIX index. It's basically fear. It's fear we're not, index, we're not even close to the point where we were at COVID, right? So our tendencies of how we spend, I think, is going to be different. People are looking for alternative assets. And in an emerging market rather than the typical market that they've been putting or parking their money in, right? So for me, I think we're going to hold strong through it just based on what you just said with Fanatics. But like I said, there's a lot of bag holders during these times because the true value of some of these cards are manufactured and inflated. So it's just a matter of, auditing the process and being able to see it in the bigger lens and saying what really has good value right now in today's prices.
Yeah, no, good point. And we'll explore some of these ideas even in our next segment, over under, but like what we find to be good value right now. And of course it's like like stocks too, or anything you invest in. It's all speculation, it's all our theory and opinion until things play out in the real world, right? But yeah, it's something to definitely consider. And I don't know, from a collector standpoint, I guess obviously it's way different from an investor standpoint. So I think that's worth repeating. Like, it's really your perspective. Like, what perspective do you bring into the hobby?
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of, I see on the comments all the time that, oh, look at the 2021 bubble, the blaming the influencers, blaming all those people, like it's, I don't know, it's kind of funny to see how everything plays out right now. But I feel like for me, it's also a sign, and this might be hopeful or optimism from my point of view, but it does seem like the hobby is growing, right? Like you saw all the people that left because the speculators, the day trader types, the ones that aren't really into collecting, but hey, they just want to see, like you were saying, they see it as an emerging market or alternative asset. They want to play a little, and now that the peak's over, they're all out, right? But at the same time, this is why I brought in the Fanatics equation. I feel like they are bringing a steady base to the hobby, right? And I think that's only good for the hobby. And I think, unlike the pandemic times, it won't grow as quickly. You won't see that, huge spike upward, but but you'll see more of a steady growth, which is healthy. That's all I'm kind of
I could see
saying.
that for
That's
sure.
my main point.
And in the long run, I think that's the way the market's growing is long-term steady. But within that, I think there's a lot of hype between releases that is the volatility within that growth.
Right.
So I think you just don't want to be trapped in that. And that's fine to play in that as well. I've played in that many times. Like, we've done really well with cards that we've sold at peak. I like Tatis X Fractor PSA 10s at $1,800 US, buying them for $15 and grading them a bulk rating at $15. Right. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Like, am I going to blame people for buying it? It's like, well, that's what the market said at the time, and it is what it is, and it's worth like $100, not even now. So it's like, if you want to participate in that, there's opportunity as a day trader. I've done that. I don't like that side of collecting as much unless I'm trying to buy like a PC card or a card that it's like, I don't want to pay this much for it. But if I could make money here and put it into the card or flip a hobby box and put it into towards that, I'm all for it.
That's my game.
Yeah,
totally.
Nothing wrong with that. And people get all bent over because people are doing it. It's like, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, no, just for me, it's like play your own game.
Play your own game.
There's so many different ways to collect and to buy and sell and trade.
Enjoy it.
Do your own thing. Yeah, and enjoy it. Don't worry too much about how others are doing it, And there's room for everyone. There's room for everyone in this hobby. So yeah, it's a great point. To wrap up this segment, just quickly on the flip side of things, not everything is going up, but it's interesting to see what is actually still going down year to date at least. So it's a smaller sample size, but those categories are Magic cards minus 5.84%, Pokemon minus 6.83%, Star Wars minus 12.14%. Marvel minus 17.21%. And if we're talking about sports cards, golf is minus 13.31%. UFC is minus 12.27%. And soccer is minus 9.34%. And the only thing I'll say this is, it's funny how kind of things have reversed, right? When sports cards were plummeting because it was just overvalued, you saw people playing with TCG cards and that's going up. And then, it's kind of, it's like there's cycles to this,
Sure.
And it's kind of flipped. And I'm sure, for me, I feel like Magic, Pokemon, like TCG cards are kind of like a wave behind. Right. So I don't think they're going to plummet to zero, especially for the bigger TCG games. But you'll see kind of the same thing. There'll be a bottoming out at some point, and then you'll see the ones that are really in it. Yeah, kind of going back into it, right? So
yeah, I'm not worried about those numbers. I think it goes hand in hand with, if you were to say, okay, on average it's a 5% growth annually or 10% growth annually, and you see that year to year for the last 30, 40 years. I think if you see 20% growth in something, it's bound to come down to hit kind of back that, the average of growth, right? So, and that's where you can make your decisions of, is it a good buy now or is it inflated, right? So I think with all the TCG and Pokemon and Star Wars, I think there's always going to be a demand for it, and it's just a matter of market correction and healthy, steady growth. Because I know the people that are involved, if they see a good deal, they're going to snag it, and that's what at the end of the day keeps the market up, is people realizing that there is value at a certain price point, right? And it's a matter of being a buyer at that price point, right? So I think the market will hold well.
Yep. It's a good time to buy for those markets if you believe in it. I just picked up my first Star Wars card, number to 50.
Nice. I seen amazing. That looks sick.
Yeah. So Roy, our hobby friend, he's going to send it to PSA for me. So hope for 10 in that case. And just don't get into FOMO. Now that some of the markets are going up with the baseball cards, there's going to be people that are like, oh, I want it now. Like, that's just human nature. When things go up, you're like, okay, now I got to get in.
Right.
But you should have been buying last year
100%.
for a lot of these cards.
Yeah.
So just a word of advice. All right. Okay, let's just move on now to our next segment we call Over Under. All right, we haven't done this in a while, but this is where I give you a card, Hyung, and I'll throw out a dollar amount, and you tell me if the last sale was over or under that number. All right? And I just got 4 cards for you this time.
Okay.
First one, we were talking about this player, Victor Wembanyama, his 20 2023 Prizm rookie card. Okay? Silver, right?
Okay.
So 2023 Silver Prizm, Victor Wembanyama, $1,000 over under.
Man, what's the pop count on those? Do you know? Approximately.
I feel like it's over 3,000.
So it's pretty high pop count. I want to say it should be over, but I'm going to say under because I think the influx of Victor cards, people's attention start going there. They sell out on the more high pop cards. So I'm going to say under, but I would expect it to be over. I wouldn't be surprised if it was over, but I'm going to say under because I think a lot of people's attention is on not the Silver Prizm.
Yeah, you're bang on. It sold for $920, but if you 2 or 3 sales before that, it was $1,078. So it's fluctuating over and under this number, but you're beginning to start seeing sales of in the 900 to 1,000 area.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that might not be I wouldn't buy the Silver Prizm personally, but like I think if you're in that game, you know, monitoring those prices and comparing it to like seeing what happened with like Luka Silver Prizms and where that's at and seeing seeing that as a good comp.
Don't remind me, because I had the Silver Prizm Doncic. And I should say that's a PSA 10 if I didn't mention it already for the Victor Wembanyama Silver. Okay, next card. 2000 Bowman Chrome Tom Brady rookie card. The base, right? That's the rookie card for Bowman Chrome. His PSA 10, $6,000. Over under that amount. 6,000.
6,000. What was the peak price of that card?
Ooh, good question.
That was like probably
I could look at it.
$25K, no?
That sounds about right, but I could just double check for you. And this is the base, not the refractor.
Yeah, right.
Just so you know. The peak price was just under 25,000, yeah.
25K. Right. So 6K. I would imagine that it fell to close to 5,000. So I'm saying it's on a little uptick now. So do I want to say it's you said 6,000 was the price? I'm going to say it's over. 2
for 2, Hyung. It sold for $6,812 recently. Nice. And you're absolutely right. It's definitely gone down obviously from the peak, but it's been stable at almost $7,000 for the past year or so now. So just one of those things we talked about in the previous segment, right? Like things are stabilizing, especially for these base, you know, more high in demand cards, rookie cards like this Tom Brady. You know, a lot of people recognize this card right away. All right, 2 more. You know, I had to get a Shohei card in here, right? It's 2018 Bowman Chrome Shohei Ohtani rookie autograph card, PSA 10, the pitching one, right? $15,000 over or under.
Sorry, which card is that? Bowman Chrome. Oh, pitching auto.
Yes.
15,000 for PSA 10, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna say it's under. I think Shohei's prices were so ridiculous that even though he's doing what he's doing, I think the price from that point, a lot of people are out of that game at that price point. So there's a lot less, but there's a lot of pop still. I think it holds from 10 to 15K, but I think above 15K is a little much to sustain that. Maybe it does if he wins MVP again, but I think right now there's been less of a Ohtani demand with Aaron Judge coming in the market. So I'm going to say it's under 15K.
3 for 3.
There you go.
Wow. It sold for $12,700 recently. And I thought I was going to get you with that one because, you know, obviously Shohei just joined the 40-40 club.
Crazy.
He's the only one, isn't he? 40-40.
This year, yeah. And he's I think the highest since A-Rod to have the most home runs and stolen bases. So 42-42. He needs 4 more bags to tie A-Rod 42-46 season. So which he's going to do.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In both ways.
No, he just hit a home run yesterday, so it's 41 now, I think.
Yeah,
and,
crazy.
Yeah. But I thought I was going to get you because obviously Shohei's hot right now, but his card sold for about 21,000 a month or 2 months ago. Right. And then this last sale went down to 12. So if you look at his chart, it's really interesting because it goes in these waves. You see the peaks like right in the height of summer, and then you see it drop all the way down in the off season.
Yeah.
And for the last 2-3 year cycles, the thing is the drop is always higher than the previous year. So he's setting new base levels essentially. Makes sense. Right. So
and that's a healthy market. Like to me, that's the true market. Is you look at how low they go and then see if it's bullish at the end of the day still. And majority of them are, right? But some like I said, Ohtani's way overvalued in my opinion, but rightfully so. Like you see the bobblehead yesterday, people lining up, and I'm sure the secondary market is pretty crazy. But yeah, I think long-term investment, I think it's going to be cheap, $15,000. But we need to get there.
But after seeing that lineup for the damn bobblehead, I'm like, I need to buy a Shohei Ohtani card. I'm going to pay whatever it takes to get one that I like. And that holds. Exactly. All right, one more. The 1984 Star Michael Jordan card. Some people will say that's the true rookie card.
Yeah.
PSA 7. The number I'm giving you is $50,000.
$50K, PSA 7. I'm going to say that 84 Star card was undervalued in general, and the Fleer 86 was overvalued in general. So I'm going to say, I don't know Jordan's market well, but I'm going to say that was an undervalued card, and people are starting to realize that it is a good buy. So I'm going to say over 50.
Wow. 100%. Good for you.
I passed?
You passed with flying colors. The sale was $54,000.
Amazing.
You're absolutely right. I wanted to choose this one because this card has been only going up the last year or two. It's crazy how far this card has gone up since, it hasn't even been that long where everyone started to take the 1984 Star rookie more seriously. Right. But I feel like we said this when on a previous pod, like 2-3 years ago, we're like, will we be surprised if the 84 starts to usurp the 86 Fleer?
For sure.
Not at all. Good for you, Hyung. 4 for 4. That's great.
we didn't discuss any of this before.
No,
we never usually do. It's just more of a freestyle game. So
it's a freestyle game where I want to make you guys look foolish, but it just backfired totally for me today. So good job, Hyung. All right, let's end off this episode with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this is when we each put up 2 cards and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right. So do you have one to start off?
I do. Let's and we're going to one of our favorite sets because this is more of a hobby set than a retail market. But talk about Topps Heritage for a second because we all love Heritage. It's one of the most boring rips, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. But there are cards out of there that are amazing, like the Real One autos, and the red ink obviously is a massive, massive card. And I truly believe in the long term of Real One autos. I think on-card auto of Topps Heritage is a great alternative to your Topps Chrome. But and the market agrees because I think on the big 3, Soto, Judge, and Ohtani, I'm going to give you 3. So it's not 1v1. It's more of a 3. But it's more to prove a point. So Soto's Real One auto, the blue ink is 2,100 on a PSA 10. Judge's is 3,500, and Ohtani is 8,500.
Woo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So given those prices, are you picking Judge or Ohtani based on those prices? And I want to make one more point after you pick this as well. So Judge at 3,500. Versus Ohtani at 8,500.
Dang, 85 is high. But okay. Oh man. Without knowing what the general trends are for each card, my gut says if I'm holding for 10 years, the Shohei card will give me more profit, even at 8,500.
Wow.
Because 3,500, like Judge is having a phenomenal year. I've doubted him once. I doubted him twice. I sold my, refractor auto, which I wish I still had, and selling it now. But I always am scared of like he's just another big injury away. Whereas Shohei, he could get Tommy John. He's still doing 40-40. Like, what is going on with this guy?
He's gonna pitch again.
I just have this. And he's going to pitch again. And, he'll probably, even if he goes into the bullpen, he'll be the all-time saves leader in a season. Like, he'll do something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just all in on Shohei at this point. And, even after he retires, people are going to remember Shohei Ohtani. And I'm sure people remember Aaron Judge too, especially because he plays for the Yankees. But my point is that I think I could profit more off Ohtani if I held for longer. So I'm going to go with the 8,500.
Wow. I think, well, this just proves, like, I purposely picked Heritage because, like, it's more of a hobbyist set and it was more of a low end set. But the reason why I presented this, it's like, if you look at the Bobby Witts now, Gunnar Hendersons, the superstars, it's like, look at the potential of these cards. We're just saying. It just gives you a good illustration of the potential of Real One autos and what they could potentially do. Red Inks are like double, triple these prices, which is crazy. But like, for me, I think it's a great buy if you're looking to do a long-term in a younger player, for instance, that you believe is the next, big superstar. Because some of the Real One autos, people think $600, $500 is a lot of money for a Real One auto, but look at the potential is all this is why I drew the comparison. So I wanted to bring that up, that the Real One auto has kind of like a lot of potential in the card itself. So there's good buying opportunities with other players on the Real One. But in this case with Judge and Ohtani, I'm telling you, Judge is crazy. This guy is not human. Same with Ohtani, but what Judge is doing is pretty crazy right now. And I still think 3,500 is cheap, especially for a Judge auto. So I think there's a play there in the short term. I do like your take on a long-term Ohtani. I still think that price on Ohtani is inflated, so it could come down a little bit. Whether it's not a lot, it might be 8,000 is the low end, or it might be 6,000, it might be 5,000. Nobody knows. So I think there might be a better buying opportunity in the future, in the short future with Ohtani. Maybe the offseason you get a deal for like 6K or whatever. Yeah. But I think based on Judge's trajectory of what he's doing this year, I think if you're buying it right now, you're gonna have opportunity to make profit even within a few months. So I'm gonna go with the Judge, even though I think it's crazy, these prices, but I just wanted to draw kind of comparisons of marketplaces. But for me, it's the Judge, buying it with the short-term or long-term mindset as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I don't know about Judge long-term. I'm still scared of his violent swing.
He's a Yankee, man. 60-plus home runs in back-to-back years. Or what is it? Hang on. Let me just really look at his. I didn't see his stats, but they're Nintendo numbers. And that just proves that Barry Bonds was so ridiculous, because it doesn't even come close to Barry Bonds' best season. Sorry. It was 51 last year, 62 to the 2022, 37 in 367 at bats, and now 60 plus this year. So it's pretty crazy.
Judge has made me look foolish over and over again. So yeah, as soon as I'm all in on Judge again, guess what? Something bad's going to happen. So for the sake of all other Judge collectors out there, you're welcome. I'm just going to stay on the sidelines.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay, my pick one. I'm going to go back to Wemby one final time for this episode. Would you buy his Wemby Silver Prizm raw? Okay? Raw. For $544. Okay, let's say $550, which is the last sale that I saw. Or would you go for his Wemby Refractor Topps Chrome, the one that just came out, raw, sold for $400 recently?
Let me see this Topps Chrome Wemby.
No, it's the same one. The one with everyone's chasing the Super Refractor, but it's the Topps Chrome version.
Just his prom pose?
Refractor. Yeah, the prom pose. No auto, just
let me see this.
Topps Chrome Refractor.
Do we know I just want to see it.
Essentially $400 for that one, and then $550 for the Silver Prizm, both raw.
I see it. See, I'm scared. So these refractors with Topps Chrome, they're not. I think silvers are more rare than Topps Chrome Refractor. I would think, unless they short printed the refractor. Normally, I would say the Topps Chrome, because you get a refractor in almost every pack, or like every other pack. I don't know what the basketball layout is, but Right now, honestly, man, I think long term, I would go with the Wemby Silver Prizm. I think having a Spurs uniform a year before the Topps Chrome release, I think the only big card long term out of this is the autos, not necessarily the base cards, although the numbered cards I think will do well in the long run. I'm going to go with the Silver Prizm just because I think it's just more of a true rookie card of Wemby versus kind of like the Topps Chrome version, the prom pose. The autos are different. I'll say the autos are in a whole different ball game, but the base cards to me, I think the Prizm will long term hold more value. And like I said, people are buying the hype right now, so I could see that refractor going down a lot more, whereas the Prizm Silver has been on a downward trajectory just in general based on the overvaluation of it. So I'm going to go with the Prizm Silver base.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be a Silver Prizm sweep. And I was just looking up the odds of getting a refractor, and it's 1 in every 2 packs if you buy a hobby box for Topps Chrome. Yeah, so it's pretty... Yeah, it's going to be a high pop count, you know, for any player, including Wemby. So there you have it. But your explanation, I agree with 100%. All right, another great episode. We appreciate all our listeners and subscribers. We'll have a brand new episode for you on Friday. Talk to you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.